Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'd like to talk about an interesting new tarot deck that has recently been published. That is the Medieval Feathers Tarot. This has been recently published by Blue Angel Publishing. So here is the box, and I'm going to show some cards from this deck that I particularly like. And the box for this deck is actually a regular type of Blue Angel Oracle deck box. I was actually expecting a different kind of box, maybe with a magnetic clasp or something like that, but this box is actually very much like a regular Oracle deck box. And this deck was created by the artist Alejandro Rozan, and the guidebook is written by Jay Rivera. So I particularly wanted this deck because of the artwork of Alejandro Rozan. So this illustration on the box is taken from the wheel card, and this is quite an interesting deck, and it's quite lovely. So there's the box. Now to talk about the guidebook, which is written by Jay Rivera. So here is the guidebook with the same image from the box on the cover. And the guidebook is quite well written. There is upright and reversed meanings in here with the pictures from each of the cards. So each of the cards are in here. And the interesting thing in here, as well as the upright and reverse meanings, you have the description about the feather. There's a different feather that appears on each of the cards, and it actually talks about which bird that the feather comes from. So that's quite unusual. The other thing that's in this book is that there is a list of the Marseille type decks that inspired this deck. So there's about a dozen decks listed here, so I think that's really good to have that listing for people who are curious about the inspiration for the illustrations for these cards. There is a specially created spread here called the feather spread, which is a bit like a past, present, future type of spread, but it also has advice. So there's an illustration of the feather spread that's in here. I really like the way the guidebook's been written. It's quite thorough, and it actually has, for the titles of the cards, it has the French title, the Marseille title, as well as the English title, which is good, really useful for people. And there are two extra cards in here as well, 2 bonus cards. One of them is a type of extra card for representing the inquirer. I'll show that card. There's also an extra tower card. I prefer the traditional tower card, so I'm going to show the traditional tower card that's in here, but there is a separate tower card called Lightning, and I'm not quite as keen on that image, because for me personally, the image doesn't particularly represent lightning for me. So I'll leave that to people to look into that for themselves, but the particular card doesn't represent lightning for me. So I like the traditional tower image. One thing that's really interesting in this deck, which I recognise straight away, is the knights in this deck are actually different, and I'll show you one of the knights as we go through, but I'll also show you what the knights are based on or inspired by. I'll show you that in a moment. I'm just going through the book to see if there's anything else that I did not mention. There's a little bit about the artist in the back of the book, Alejandro Rozan. There's a little bit about him, and also about the author, Jay Rivera. I'm just wondering if there's something else in here that I need to mention. Don't think there is really, as far as what I've already mentioned. But yes, it's quite a good guidebook. So that part is worth having. Okay, now I just wanted to show how the knights are different. They're called cavalier also. The knights in this deck are inspired by the Minciate knights or cavaliers, and I'll show you one of the cards from this deck to give you an idea of what I mean. So here's a traditional Minciate deck by Lo Scarabeo, and that is from the Anima Antiqua range. The knights in this deck are inspired by the cavalier in the Minciate deck. All of the knights or cavalier cards of the different suits are based on this type of thing. So they're a kind of a centaur figure, or where it's not a centaur, they might be half lion or something like that, some mythological creature. So I recognised that straight away when I looked at these knights. I thought, wait a minute, I've seen that before. So straight away I looked into my Minciate deck and I found it straight away. And that's why the Minciate is one of the decks listed in the book for inspiration for this deck. So that explains that. Because a lot of people may be wondering why the knights look different in the deck. That's why. Okay, to talk about the cards. The cards have a really quite lovely burnished gold edging. The burnished gold is really like a type of bronze. It's got a bronze look, and I really like that. It's not this shiny, glitzy gold. It's this beautiful burnished bronze. I really like that. The back of the cards, like this. So you have the name of Alejandro Rozan and Jay Rivera on the back here. And what pretty much looks like the year of creation of the deck is here in Roman numerals. So this is a very traditional thing in Marseille decks. The people who recognise them know that. So that's the back of the cards. I was just thinking about showing possibly some more cards so people can get a better look at this beautiful bronze edging. So you can see it here with the extra cards here. It's beautiful bronze. It's quite lovely. So I like that. The cards have a smooth matte finish, and the cardstock is quite good. now to show some cards. Now, the Fool card is different, has a different type of feather to the others. It's got this brightly coloured feather to signify, the difference with the Fool, because the Fool is often considered as the most important card in the deck, and I do see the Fool as the most important card in the deck. So you have the French title here, and you have the English title here of the Fool. And there are also key words at the top and the bottom for upright or reversed. Some of these keywords are quite interesting. At first I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about that. I normally wouldn't like that. But with this deck, I don't know, it just seems kind of appropriate. I don't know what it is, but I'm quite okay about that with this deck. And even the borders seem to blend with the colour palette. The borders don't look out of place to me. For people who have a problem with borders, well then you probably won't get this deck. But I think everything works and blends in really well. So this is the Fool card. And I love a traditional looking Fool card. And of course, because this is a Marseille type deck, we're going to get traditional looking illustrations and figures, but of course this is medieval as well. So here is the Magician, and you can also see the feather, which is not as brightly coloured as the Fool. So here is the Magician. Oh, and these cards are a little bit taller than a regular tarot card as well. So I also wanted to mention that, because I was a little bit surprised when I first opened the box and thought, oh, these are a little bit taller or bigger. They're not oracle size cards, but they are taller, particularly taller than a regular tarot card. So I'm mentioning that as well. But because the artwork is so beautiful, I'm sort of allowing that as well. It's, I really like this deck, so I love the artwork. It's a Magician. So you have La Papesse, or the Popess, here on the bottom of the card in English. You've got Roman numerals for the numbering, but you have the titles as well, so I don't think anyone's going to be confused about these images. So here is the Popess. And I kind of like the idea that she's shown here as a type of scribe, and she's looking after the esoteric books, the esoteric knowledge. So I like that. Beautiful Empress card. And I like the key word for this one. The Empress has productivity for the key word. I like that. And of course, you have a beautiful ostrich feather for this one. Here is the Lovers. One thing about the size with these cards, at least you can see the artwork. You can see the artwork quite well. So that's an advantage. Lovers. And of course, I think a lot of people will recognize this Chariot from the Visconti. I have always loved the Chariot card, particularly in the Visconti Tarot. So I'm really glad that this Visconti type Chariot image was used. I think that's really quite beautiful. Of course, Justice is 8, which I prefer in this deck. Of course, this is a Marseille type deck. It's quite a lovely Justice card. And Wheel of Fortune, which is the image on the box and the book. I think this deck would make a really good first Marseille deck for people if they have not got a Marseille deck at all. I think this would make a really good first Marseille deck. Here is the Hanged Man, and I love the keyword of perception for this one. Just think it's a perfect keyword. Death card. And this Death card is numbered. Sometimes in traditional Marseille decks, the Death card is unnumbered and, unnamed too, sometimes. Here's the Death card. It's a great Death card. And the key word is endings. Devil, and a really interesting keyword here is contradictions. I like that. And this one is different because there is the feather. There is a feather here, but really interesting addition of butterfly wings. So that's really interesting. And there is a description of the feather and explanations for the images. They're not very detailed explanations, but it is mentioned in the book. So this is a really interesting devil card. Very original. And here is the traditional Tower card. And I'm glad that there is a choice in the deck for people who would like something a bit different, but I just think the Tower image is such a classic image of the Marseille or any tarot deck really. You have, I feel you have to have the traditional type of image. That's the Tower. Actually, I'll correct myself here. It's in the book they're mentioning the Tower, but this is the traditional title, the House of God. And that is another very interesting title when you think about it. So, and very interesting keyword of emancipation. So I like that too. this is what I mean about the keywords on the cards. They're interesting. I mean, they're not all predictable keywords. Here is the moon. It's quite a beautiful card. And an interesting sun card. It's really interesting. With the beautiful black feather. Judgment, very traditional card. And the keyword is revelation. Now this is the additional card called the querent. And the keyword is self-embodiment. I really like that. And it actually looks quite a lot like the world card. I mean the traditional type of world card that you would expect. So I really like this card too, and I love this additional card. So there are some of the Major Arcana cards that I particularly like. Now for the suits, wands. These have all got traditional Marseille titles for the suits. Here is the Ace of Wands. And it's got a type of dragon figure on here, entwined around the wand. Ace of Wands, Two of Wands, excuse me, Three of Wands, Three of Wands. And here is the Knight of Wands, and this is what I was talking about. The wands or cavaliers being centaurs or mythological type creatures. So it says Knight of Wands here. You've got the cavalier title here for the French title. And the Queen of Wands. It's quite a beautiful card. Now for cups. Ace of Cups. Three of Cups. And the King of Cups. Now for swords. This Ace of Swords has a type of griffin, type of mythological figure. It's the Ace of Swords. You can see the sword here. I really like the mythological creatures. 3 of Swords. Put the sword here in the middle. And I like the feather in the middle of the card too. It's entwined with the sword in the middle. And the King of Swords. Now for coins. We have a unicorn here, or the Ace of Coins. The 2 of Coins, which has the same image as the card back, because this is very often the traditional 2 of coin image in a Marseille deck. And this is actually a feather. These are actually feathers too. And it says in the book which bird this feather comes from. These feathers come from. And the Queen of Coins. And the key word is practicality. Okay, so there's some of the cards from the Medieval Feathers Tarot, artwork by Alejandro Rozan and guidebook by Jay Rivera, published by Blue Angel very recently. It's only just been released. Well, it's quite a lovely deck. It's also unique in a lot of ways. It's unique because of not only the artwork, but I like the way that the knights are different, which are inspired by the Vinciate. I love the colour palette in the deck. The cardstock is good, really good. The beautiful burnished gold gilding. I like the way the book's written. There isn't all that much that I don't like about the deck. I think just adjusting to the slightly taller size for some people, that's something that you need to kind of expect when you buy this deck. As I was saying, I think this would make a really good first Marseille deck, because there's more explanation with the cards and with the guidebook. So I think, this is also really good for people who also own Marseille decks, but they want something different, but not too different. It's traditional, but it's unique in its own way. So I think it's quite a lovely deck, and it's quite unique. And when you have the artwork of Alejandro Rozan, there isn't much that can go wrong. So the Medieval Feathers Tarot, published by Blue Angel. I'll put some details below the video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.